The Early Weigh-In Podcast is back, and we're here talking fights for UFC Vegas 36. We're back at the Apex on Saturday for some earlier fights, so I can get down with that on Saturday. The main event is between middleweights and Derek Brunson and Darren Till. I don't know if you guys remember, but I got to fix my hair. I don't know if you guys remember what it looks like here. You look good finally wearing that after a couple weeks. Had a bunch of fights fall apart this week, man. We're down to only 10 fights here on Saturday. And if I'm going to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot of spots that I like, to be honest, when it comes to these money lines. But as always, I'll go ahead and let you recap last week's before we get into it.
Yeah, it does seem to be one of those prop-heavy type of weeks. I'm with you. There's not very many money lines that stand out to me. Mm-hmm. Like you said, they're kind of treating the European fans with the early start time, which I'm really looking forward to. And we have a ton of great European fighters on the card. But yeah, we did end up going minus 0.62 units, which compared to the general capper population seemed to be not so bad. You know, I know a lot of people took some heavy hits. We start off with the Edson Barboza bet, which is actually the only straight bet that we tagged or snagged the best line possible, getting Edson Barboza at plus money. We thought it was a great bet even going into it after the odds had shifted. But he just didn't look good. It didn't look as good as we thought. And Giga looked way better than we anticipated. Then we go to the Brian Battle fight against Gilbert Urbina, where we also laid 2 units. Got a little sketchy there in the first round, but he did end up pulling it out. And it was an overall good fight. Good way to end the Ultimate Fighter season for the 185ers. Then we had the Tercios high stand fight, another one that was a little sketchy. I do think that the judges got the right call. Yeah. I definitely can appreciate that they're not giving fights to people just for getting takedowns. You got to do something with it. Yeah. Then takes us to our parlay, where it actually got busted immediately on the night, where we had the Martinez Canetti fight going the distance. I don't think anybody saw that.
Yeah, no, Martinez didn't show up at all.
No, and I don't think anybody saw Meerschaert getting the finish either over Morono.
Yeah, I know that. That was what they call the apple pie shitter of the night right
there.
Yes,
for sure. I'm happy that we took the fight doesn't go the distance, even though it didn't affect our night.
Right.
Then we had Al Hassan by TKO, and he comes in there and absolutely starches DiChirico.
I know you're in the first round at plus 650.
I wanted that first round, but it doesn't matter, man. Hitting the plus 350 was huge for us and saved us a little bit. Right. Then we had the Dustin Jacoby Darren Stewart fight doesn't go the distance at plus money. I think you said it last week on the fight card. You hit plus money, fight doesn't go the distance on 205ers blindly, you're going to come positive long term.
And as soon as it started, I knew it wasn't hitting the scorecards.
Oh, yeah. They were throwing down from the very start. Then you had the Daniel Rodriguez versus Kevin Lee. Man, we had a plus 250 on Rodriguez inside the distance, and that was very close to hitting, man.
It was, man. Maybe a little bit immature of us, though, not to go ahead and take the true welterweight at plus money, though, you know.
I agree. Plus 130, for whatever reason, it didn't look tempting enough for us, but in hindsight, that's definitely how we should have played it. Then Petrovsky wins by round 1 TKO.
A little bit of a broken line we tried to take advantage of.
Yeah, right, which is why we only gave a 0.2 on that one.
They gave us a sub at like plus 200 and the TKO at plus 650, you know.
It's a line that we had to try and exploit. Yeah. Honestly, I don't think anybody had put Petrovsky in round 3.
Yeah, that was nowhere in sight.
Right. We'll start off the card in the bantamweight division, where we have Jonathan Martinez, who's 13-4, taking on Marcelo Rojo, who's 16-7. Jonathan Martinez, he's fighting out of Factory X Muay Thai, and he's continuing to fight at bantamweight. Even though he struggled in the past with his weight issues, it worries me, man. It kind of makes me think that his chin was affected. You know, we saw him, he missed weight badly against that Frankie Sands fight, goes up and fights Thomas Almeida and is able to take some really good shots, and then goes back down to 135, makes weight, but gets knocked out by Davey Graham.
Right.
And honestly, he just... It makes me a little bit worried. I understand he's not the biggest 145er, but if the weight cut's a problem and we do see Rojo get this first round knockout like I'm anticipating, I think that he'll definitely either have to get out of the UFC or make a change in his weight. Rojo, he's training in Tijuana out of Interim MMA with Brandon Moreno. Yeah. I know that he actually flew into Vegas a couple weeks ago to try and get acclimated, which I can really appreciate. He's coming off a tough loss to Charles Jourdain, where he also stepped in on short notice and really got to show his toughness, but ultimately fell victim to what happens the majority of the time he loses in his career, and that's a round 3 drop-off. I think that Rojo's gonna have to pressure Martinez early to get the job done, but I do like that. I think his first round TKO's at plus 750, and his TKO in general is at plus 500, and that's actually how I'm looking to play this.
So I'm going to be on the Martinez side. You talked about where he's training out of, a bunch of good guys that he's working with, and despite the weight cut issues, he does seem to have a pretty good gas tank, fights well behind his jab, and he really digs into some of those low kicks that he has. He likes those knees up the middle, he likes to throw them to the body, and he's found two going up top with him. And someone like Marcelo, who's going to be crashing forward with that pressure, I think those knees are actually could cause Marcelo a lot of trouble here on Saturday. But with Jonathan Martinez, you're right. Not that long ago, he's losing to Andre Sukumtath and stuff. But I think there are steady, progressive improvements that we've seen from this guy out of a good gym. You see him take on a name like Andre Ewell, and despite it being a split decision loss for him, a lot of people, myself included, might think he probably should have edged it out that night. But it's a good household name. And then you talk about Frankie Saenz, another good household name, and Thomas Almeida, another good household name. None of that really warranted him to be the minus 300 favorite to us and Davey Grant. And I don't think I, let you end up playing us the TKO proper Davey Grant at the plus 300. But I know we were all over telling people, do not put Jonathan Martinez on a parlay on Saturday night. And we knew it was probably going to be the one that got busted. You talked about Marcelo, in the Jourdain fight. It's up a weight class, and he gives a damn good account of himself, in 1-1 into that third round. Super entertaining to watch. He's not been to the scorecards in, I think, either 6 or 9 years. Man, it's one of the two numbers. Can't remember, but this guy just doesn't see the scorecards. He likes to walk you down, let his hands go. He's a proven finisher, man. He's finished 14 of his 16 fights inside the distance. I do not hate his TKO at plus 500 one bit. But that style you talked about of his, it is a detriment to him because he can't keep the pace up for the full time. 3 of his losses do come in the third round. 4 of them by submission, so a ground game being a little bit of a weakness he has. I'm going to side with Martinez, but my play, I think I was earlier today that I tweeted out, the best play I like, I snagged plus money on FanDuel. It doesn't go the distance at plus 108. Both guys are finishers. Rojo, historically just doesn't see the scorecards, and you're going to give me plus money. But I want to be picky here and take the fight doesn't go the distance because you've seen Jonathan Martinez get 2 third-round finishes, one of those after the 2.5-minute mark. And then Rojo's 2 of his 3 losses in the third round, they're after the 2.5-minute mark. So I think you should play the extra 2.5 minutes here and still get a decent line. My best play is the under here, or doesn't go the distance, but I will side with Jonathan Martinez.
And I got to go with that first round TKO at plus 750 just because of the Martinez weight cutting issues and him coming off of this TKO loss, knowing that that's Rojo's path. I think that those are pretty broken odds, and for this to be kind of one of the lower level fights on this card, a sprinkle at those type of odds is what interests me as opposed to playing either side or committing too much units.
And seeing Jonathan Martinez on the scale on Saturday, I might be looking to play Rojo's side if he comes in and botches a weight cut or something too. Mm-hmm. Next up, we're in the middleweight division where we see Dalcha Lungiambula, who's 11-2, taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. He's 12-4. With Dalcha, training out of Extreme Couture, working a whole lot with the heavyweight champ Francis. He's a judo black belt. He represented the Congo national team for a long time before coming over to the to MMA. This guy's got great trips. He's very strong in the clinch, and when he gets on top of you, extremely heavy, and he has nasty ground and pound. Dalcha doesn't mess around on the mat here. We've seen him take a little bit of time off, drop down to 85 in the last fight where he took on Marcus Perez, and Perez was just a little bit scared of the power, in my opinion. He was very happy and content with kind of playing off his back. And that's what kind of gets me to kind of maybe lean toward the other side. We saw Dalcha get kind of tired in round 3. He really didn't have to work that much, in my opinion. Where on the side of Mark Barriault, he's, he seemed to really like Sanford MMA. He did the final touches for his camp there last time, and I think he's been there ever since. Last fight of his against Abu Azatar, his back was up against the wall. He lost his previous 3 UFC fights, and then his only win gets overturned after he gets popped by USADA. His job was most definitely on the line, and he needed a great performance there, in order to keep it. When you look back at who Marc-Andre's fought, and you look at his 3 losses, Yeon Park is going 5 for 10 on the takedowns. Jotko's going 1 for 7. The NAIA national champion Andrew Sanchez is going 2 for 8. I think Marc-Andre is going to be a do enough to maybe keep the fight on the feet, or at least be able to work back to his feet. And that's where I go back to that being a lot more taxing on Dalcha than just defending submissions from the bottom like he was with Marcus Perez. Gut tells me Marc-Andre by decision, man, but to be honest with you, I'm probably going to stay away from this fight.
Yeah, so you're officially going with
I think I'm going to officially go with Mark, yeah.
Okay.
But it's by no means confident, you know.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Dalcha here, but it's not that that's how I'll be playing this fight. Like you said, Dalcha, I mean, he doesn't mess around. Look at him. If you just physically, he is a physical specimen. Right. He's got huge power, fight-ending power in his hands at any point in time. Where Marc-Andre Barriault, he's trying to think. I always bring up Elias Theodorou as my guy when I talk about somebody who's willing to grind up against the cage. And that's what he's definitely going to look to do against Dalcha here. He's going to look to take away that power, try and slow him down a little bit. Because like you said, we've seen Dalcha slow down in those later rounds. Something that I noticed at looking into this fight is that the odds makers don't think that this is going to go to the judges. They have that sitting at a minus 160-ish. We see a little difference there. But they've got it at minus 160, and I think that the finishing upside is on Dalcha's side. And Dalcha TKO is plus 420 here. They have Barriault coming back inside the distance at plus 130, and I don't think that that's going to happen, man. I actually there's two ways that I'd play this. I'd play it Dalcha TKO plus 420 and then Barriault by decision at plus 300. I don't think that you're going to lose that way. Honestly, I think when you look at Marc-Andre and his history, he loses when he's out-wrestled. I mean, every single one of his losses, I think he gave up at least 2 takedowns in. And I think that he's going to need to be the one who's more offensive in his wrestling to get the win here. All that being said, I like the Dalcha Lungiambula side at plus 420 by TKO. I know we haven't seen Marc-Andre take that type of punishment to make me think that he would get knocked out, but Dalcha's definitely shown me the power that he's capable of knocking somebody like Marc-Andre out. Yeah,
Andre, I mean, he's shown durability, but you know, we can't ignore the fact that the guy walks forward on the center line, doesn't move his head one bit. And even in the Abu fight, taking some pretty clean shots that you probably don't want to take from Dalcha. My problem with Dalcha is just the striking. It kind of seems basic to me, you know. He kind of loads up on it. It's low volume, backing up. He doesn't set his strikes up well. But at the same time, you know, Marc-Andre is going to be coming forward, trying to push him up against the fence. Like I said, I don't by no means lean either way this confidently. I just, I think Dalcha's not going to have as much success grappling as he did with the guy taking the fight on short notice and Perez and stuff. It's going to be a little bit more exhausting holding the 6'1", you know, guy down to the mat on Saturday. Andre, by decision, is probably how I'd lean it, but I'm not touching his money line at like minus 150 or nothing by no means.
I hear you. Our next fight is a 150-pound catchweight bout between Charles Jourdain, who's 11-3-1, and Julian Erosa, who's 25-9. Charles Jourdain, he's training at a Brazilian top team in Canada, and it's tough to kind of judge what type of fighter he is just looking at his UFC career. Right. He's gone 2-2-1. The split decision to Joshua Kulabau is the one that stands out to me the most. It's the one that it's tough to let go or to try and put that past him. And then the comeback win over Marcelo Rojo, who made it a competitive fight on short notice. It doesn't tell me too much, in my opinion. Charles Jourdain. He's a switch stance fighter with a boxing heavy attack, and he does have some great kicks from either side. And he does have a great gas tank, which we actually saw him kind of lean on in that Rojo fight and actually step up in the third round. Going over to Julian Erosa, he's coming out of Extreme Couture for this camp, and he's stepping in on short notice for Lerone Murphy. And I can't guarantee much from Juicy J, but I can guarantee some violence, you know? He's one of those guys who kind of has like that Homer Simpson tendency, walking forward and hopefully kind of like wearing you down. One thing you definitely can't guarantee when Julian Erosa is fighting is his chin. You know, one day he's getting knocked out by Sung Woo Choi, and that's of this year in June. And then the other day he's eating every shot that Sean Woodson can possibly throw at him. You definitely don't know which Julian Erosa is going to show up, but I do like Julian Erosa. I think it's inside the distance. Or,
plus 350-ish.
Plus 350, something like that. I think that's the way I'd play this. Again, it's one of these fights where I'd much rather sprinkle than try and pick a side straight up.
Yeah, for me, Charles Jourdain, he's pretty much, as I try to think through the Canadian prospects and stuff that are out there, there's very few that come to my mind, and I got to think Charles Jourdain at 25 is probably kind of leading the way for the Canadian. Yeah. Well, there's Gavin Tucker. He's up there, but Charles Jourdain has a lot of potential, still only being 25 years old, was the TKO champion there in Canada, and he's extremely exciting to watch. You can't look away for a second. He's throwing spinning back fist, flying knees, and you talk about his body kick, which could be crucial to Julian Erosa here on short notice, wanting an extra couple pounds to cut. He's got a 100% finish rate in all of his wins as well, and this right out of the gate, you see 0 favors done to this kid by the UFC. His first fight, he's up a weight class at 55, taking on Desmond Green in New York. It's Desmond Green's hometown, and Desmond Green's a wrestler, man. That's the worst stylistic matchup Charles Jourdain could probably take to get into the UFC for him. The second fight in, they fly him over to Korea supposed to be a layup fight for Doo Ho Choi after he's just lost to Swanson and Stevens. Upsets the night as a plus 300 dog with a second round TKO. And it's like, all right, you can hang with the big boys. Here's 15-fight veteran Andre Feely, and it's like 0 favors done, but you're right. When he was supposed to get that thank you fight for taking those and Josh Kulabau and even Marcelo Rojo, man, he turns these fights into just unnecessary wars that you think he should be levels above these guys, and it is something that you definitely don't like to see when fighting Julian Erosa, who was going to definitely bring that war out of you. He trains out of Couture, Extreme Couture in Vegas, and he first bursts on the scene by another massive upset of his own on the first season of the Contender Series against Jamal Emmers. And when he comes into the UFC, man, this just, I think it's 0-3, TKO twice or something like that, just doesn't look good. He looks the best when he's coming in on short notice. When you mentioned the Charles Woodson fight, he's walking through everything Woodson has to throw at him and just breaks this guy from making him, move backwards so much. We tried to take a chance, take our Tennessee boy. We said if there's a chance to back Nate Landwehr, there's one person more hittable than Nate Landwehr, and it's Julian Erosa.
What do you know?
Yeah, what do you
Nate
know?
Landwehr's the one whose chin doesn't show up.
Getting knocked out, But that Sting Choi fight, I want to bring it up because these boys get into a striking exchange 7 seconds into the fight, and right then and there, who was far more technical than the other one, and the TKO followed shortly after, man. I think Charles Jourdain is a better striker here, and less than 3 months removed from a TKO. I think Erosa should try to grapple here. You saw Desmond Green go 4 for 4 on the takedowns. Feely 5 for 6. You saw him lose to TJ Laramie on the regional scene by the wrestling. I think that's Erosa's best path here, is if he wants to try to wrestle Jourdain. I don't really think he wants to get up there and strike at range with him. I did not want to lay minus 215 on Jourdain, but he's sitting at a minus 180 and seems to be creeping down a little bit now. Still laying a lot of chalk, probably won't do it. I'm going to side with Jourdain.
Okay.
Moving on, we're in the bantamweight division where we see Jack Shore, who's undefeated at 14-0, taking on Liudvik Sholinian, who's 9-1-1. I know you don't feel the same way, but Jack Shore has been my boy, man. I talk about this guy for a lot. I think he's one of the brightest prospects that the UFC has right now, and I flat out just love the way this guy fights. He's very fundamentally sound on the mat. He's great at finding the back of his opponents. He's finished 12 of his 14 wins inside the distance, with 8 of those by submission, 7 of those by rear naked choke, which is by far my favorite submission. It's a submission that you can't just pull the rear naked choke like you can the guillotine. You got to work for it and stuff. With Shore, in his last fight, he takes on Hunter Azur, who's a very talented wrestler, man. A 4-time high school state champion wrestler, a JUCO national champion wrestler. And when you have a jiu-jitsu guy, that's the style that's supposed to complicate them. And we saw Shore go, land a ton of takedowns, stuff every one of Azur's takedowns, and in round 3 really take over. He's really good at getting the double underhooks and dragging you down and setting those hooks in, getting to work on the back. With Liudvik, he's at Extreme Couture now, and he's most recently on the Ultimate Fighter season, where he lost to the eventual winner in Ricky Tercios. You knew he was probably going to eventually get his shot, and throughout the season, he was kind of the hopeful or the person I picked to win the bantamweight side of things. Almost like Erosa, Liudvik just has a ton of forward pressure to his game, and it really exhausts guys from making a move backward so much. He's got great size at 5'10" for the division and really looks to employ that on his opponents. I just don't necessarily like the style of that on Jack Shore. I think when they go to getting any type of grappling situations, Jack Shore is going to be the much stronger of the two. And probably make it boring, man. I think Jack Shore is probably going to get a whole lot of riding time in this one. Might not submit Liudvik. Probably takes us 30-27 on the scorecards.
So I'll start off by saying if this was a pick'em fight, yes, I'll take Jack Shore every single day. I just got a couple of problems with this line. One, we've got a 26-year-old in Jack Shore who's been through zero adversity. Yeah. And I guess you could say the adversity he has been through was against Hunter Azure, who, in my opinion, is on the same level as Sholinian here. You know, you talked about Hunter Azure being that 4-time high school wrestling champion, JUCO national champion. Liudvik has similar accolades, being on the Ukraine national wrestling team. But like you said, he has that tendency. Sholinian has that tendency to kind of bring that pressure. He's a little bit slower than his opponents, and he is a little bit hittable. Yeah. But there is a couple of things that I really like about him right here. And the biggest one is that he's training at Extreme Couture right now. You know, we talked about his time on The Ultimate Fighter. And here's one thing that we got to realize is he's probably going to come in bigger in this fight because he's not having to keep his weight in check like he had to on The Ultimate Fighter. So we're going to see a bigger, stronger Sholinian here. We're also going to see probably the last 3 months of his career, he's been at the best he's had the best training partners, best camp that he could possibly be in, and up till this point. When you look at Jack Shore, he's training out of his dad's backyard in the land of historic wrestlers, Wales. Are we serious? I mean, he's definitely the best wrestler to come out of Europe in a long time, but honestly, to justify him being a minus 500 favorite, you've got to be out of your mind. I don't think that Jack Shore is going to get finished here by Sholinian, but the fact that a Hunter Azure can take him to a split decision, shouldn't have been a split decision, but it was. You know, at the end of the day, it was. The fact that Hunter Azure can take him to a split decision and we can get Liudvik Sholinian by decision at plus 750 is wild to me, man. I understand that maybe I should just take the plus 400 on Sholinian, and I probably will, but I'll also be playing that decision prop as well at plus 750. I think that's on FanDuel as well, and it's by far the best line out there.
I don't necessarily hate it, man. You know he's going to come in. I personally think you should probably stick with the plus 400. It's a guy on short notice, so it's I don't like to bank on cardio being the thing on short notice that'll get a guy a decision win, you know. And a plus 400 is already a killer line. With Jack Shore, I really favor this guy everywhere. Really, really good jab, good 1-2. I think his calf kick's really going to mess up Liudvik a whole bunch.
If, in all fairness, if you didn't finish Nolan Hernandez and Aaron Phillips, you're not UFC caliber. You getting, and this goes for anybody, you getting a split decision with Hunter Azure in no way, shape, or form should make you a minus 500 over anybody in the UFC. You know what I'm saying? It's wild to me, and I want Jack Shore to lose just because of it, and I know that's going to fuck up a lot of people's parlays, but it just seems a little wild to me. So.
I'm going to put the hat on that one.
I don't want to put the hat on that one. I don't. But I think the odds are off. The odds are off. Our prelim main event takes place in the women's flyweight division, where we see Yeon Kim, who's 9-3-2, taking on Meatball Molly McCann, who's 10-4. Yeon Kim, she's training at a Syndicate MMA and has a very boxing-heavy attack. She actually is coming off of a loss to Alexa Grasso, who's a really good opponent, and I don't think that loss should be weighted.
A straw weight.
A straw weight, but with stylistically, it's a tough fight for Kim, right? In this, and it can't be overlooked and must be mentioned, especially in women's MMA, Kim's got a 3-inch height advantage and a 10-inch reach advantage. I mean, I understand that Kim historically has not utilized that very well, but it is something that's going to play a factor here. Molly McCann, she's coming off of 2 losses, one of them forgivable against Talia Santos, and one of them unforgivable against Laura Procopio, who I don't think is with the UFC anymore.
Yeah, that did not age well. Her gassing against Casey O'Neill, wasn't it?
Yes, it was awful. Pretty much, yeah. Laying down. Across Molly McCann's 3 UFC losses, she's gotten taken down 14 times, And in her 3 wins, she's gotten at least 2 takedowns. Mm-hmm. What I need people to understand is I don't think Molly McCann's wrestling is as good as they'd like to think. The girls that she's getting her takedowns against have awful takedown defense, and even though she does get those takedowns, she winds up in a stand-up war with them by the end of the fight. And if this fight does end up on the feet and becoming just a stand-up war, I am going to have to favor Kim here just because of the sheer size, which I think will also be a problem for Molly McCann to try and keep her down on the ground. So yeah, I am going to lean Kim here in this coin flip of a fight, but I honestly, I don't think I'd recommend you placing your hard-earned cash on this fight.
I'm pretty much with you, man. I was kind of leaning Molly earlier, but just the more I look at it and stuff, the more I've pretty much come to the conclusion the best bet is just to pass on this fight here. With Yeon Kim, you talked about her being out of Syndicate MMA. There's great girls to train with there. I've always talked about that being a great girls gym. It's Roxanne. It's got John Wood's fiance, JoJo Calderwood, Norma Dumont, Nico Montano, a lot of girls there. And she's specifically been working with the PI a whole bunch to try to fix that weight cut down to 125 that she was having the issues with. You mentioned the insane reach that she's going to have, and she pretty much fights behind a really, really long jab. But she's willing to let girls kind of enter the pocket. She's willing to eat one, maybe move her head a little bit in order to land 2 in return. And she's got a really, really strong left hook when she exits the pocket. But her punches, man, they're just slow to me. And being so lanky, there's not a lot of pop on them, And when you look at statistics-wise, she only lands at a 34% rate. So she's pretty inaccurate with her punches as well. And you talk about the 3 losses that Molly has, and she's been taken down 14 times. Yeon Kim's 0 for 1 in her UFC career on takedown. So, stylistically and historically, it's not the type of style that's given Molly the issues. And we've seen Antonina Shevchenko style on Yeon Kim on the ground, and that's a girl that for me, I've been a big proponent of her ground game. It was at the Lipsky fight that didn't tell me nothing,
Mm-hmm.
And we saw it in the KGB Lee fight that it's still very bad. So I've seen Kim out wrestled by lower level girls. With Molly McCann, I think the volume's going to be on her side. When you look at her fights that she's had, the 3 that have gone to decision and that she's won, she's eclipsed over 100 significant strikes in every single one of those, where Yeon Kim's, I think, maybe touched 75. But I'd also be a fool to ignore the fact that while she's landing 100 strikes, there's also fights where she's taken 80, 90 strikes herself, and she is fighting a primarily boxing heavy in Kim here. Like I said, originally I was on Molly McCann. I think, she had the ability to close some of the distance, land some of her shots. I think she has the ability to land the calf kick a ton on Kim's lead leg, and I think she can wrestle Kim. But, man, I'm still gonna say Molly, but man, I'm not betting on this fight, and I did retract my bet on Molly McCann. Kicking off the main card, the casual cap is on the line for a very, very fun fight on Saturday. We got Luigi Vendramini, who's 9-2, taking on Paddy Pimblett, who's 16-3. With Luigi at a Factory Muay Thai, man, trains with a slew of really good guys there. A few years back, when he made his debut, it's 2 years into his pro career, and he's up a weight class against fringe top 15 Zaleski dos Santos. And dude, round 1, there's a slick back take, and Luigi definitely has his moments. And, it was pretty evident that he knew on short notice up a weight class he didn't have much of a gas tank to himself, and ultimately wasn't able to get that finish in round 1 and kind of gassed in round 2. But man, that gave us the absolute gift of a line next time out against Jesse Ayari. And then maybe our play on Vros Ziem there, maybe a little bit premature, taking Luigi there. We thought we were going to beat the line, and we ended up not. Mm-hmm. And it was a little bit of a frustrating fight all around. The first 2 rounds, Luigi just couldn't get past the jab of the taller, longer striker. And it took till round 3 for him to really, I guess, want to fight. And we saw when Luigi wants to bring it, man, he has power. He can drop you. And in my book, that was definition 10-8. Like I said, a little premature for us, but I think that's 3 units that should have been back in the bankroll for us there. He's a serious BJJ black belt on the mat, and I think that's something that could seriously negate an area that Paddy really likes to have success in. With Paddy Pimblett, he's the Cage Warriors champion, very experienced for 26. And he is one ugly son of a bitch, man. From what I've seen, just watching tape on this guy, there's a ton of hype around him. It was without a doubt he's coming over to the UFC. It's just a matter of when. But the striking is really limited. He's just really trying to get you down to the mat where majority of his wins come by TKO, via ground and pound, or submission. I think he might have a slight wrestling edge here, against Luigi, who I think, but he's the much better, I think, pure jiu-jitsu player. And man, I'm very curious to see when this hits the mat who is the better of the two. But I think there is a damn good chance that our boy Luigi comes through here again as the underdog. There's a lot of hype around Paddy. I've personally already going to play our boy, man.
Yeah, so I am taking Paddy here. It's one of these fights where I see it as a coin flip, and it's a fun one to take. Mm-hmm. Paddy, he, like you said, he kind of brings this like similar Conor McGregor style energy where he's got like this cult like following with him, and you'll hear it online. Mm-hmm. We've been on that Luigi train for a while, and like you said, it kind of sucked when it got stopped with the Ferocium fight, but that was a draw in every way, shape, or form. I feel like both these guys actually lean on their grappling to get their wins, and I would actually give Vendramini the wrestling upside in this one. Okay. Like you said, Paddy has the BJJ skills, and I think that he more or less wins his grappling with scrambles, sweeps, and submission attempts, where Luigi's much more positionally dominant, and he'll look to kind of advance position but just keep you on the ground and ground and pound you out. That being said, I also kind of give Luigi the stand-up advantage. He's got more power, but is somewhat amateurish in his entries, and we saw that in the Ferocium fight. He can get outclassed on the feet, and not to say that Paddy Pimblett is a Ferocium level striker, but Paddy Pimblett does have some sneaky strikes on the feet. He's got a quick front high kick that he can kind of slap up there, and I don't think that he's completely lost on the feet is what I'm getting at. I think Luigi will have the advantage if he's on top, but if he does get swept, which is Paddy's go-to, he is going to have some trouble. And if Paddy is in a dominant position, I don't really like Luigi's chances. There's a couple of things that I see in this fight that I think that there are some broken lines. They have doesn't go the distance at minus 190. They have Paddy inside the distance at plus 120 and Luigi inside the distance at plus 300. Yeah. I personally think that Paddy and Luigi have about even Stevens odds on getting it done inside the distance. I like Luigi inside the distance for plus 300, and I wouldn't be opposed to maybe putting a little sprinkle on that for the podcast. But ultimately, I'm going to take Paddy for the hat, and regardless, I think we're going to get a killer fight.
Yeah, man, I'm not a big fan of Paddy's striking defense. I think the openings are going to be there for Luigi to land his clean left hook, especially that calf kick that he likes to dig in. And Paddy Pimblett, for me, man, how do I say? He's a can crusher. It's
a little hype train.
Look the past two wins, okay? Decky Dalton. Who the fuck is Decky Dalton? So I do a little digging. And he's a featherweight who has to come up on days' notice to take on Paddy Pimblett. Looks completely
maybe
undersized.
The only ugliest person than Paddy Pimblett. Oh
completely outsized there. David Martinez, another very, very low-level guy who's been out for 2 years when he takes on Paddy Pimblett. The fights I like to look at, the one against Soren back there, don't get me wrong, he has a phenomenal round one. Paddy does, almost puts him away. Kind of gasses, and Soren Beck grinds this guy out on the ground and really dominates him in the wrestling. Look at the Nadny Armani fight. He gets dominated in the wrestling and stuff again there. So I think Luigi is just as good on the mat where Paddy loves to take his fights, and that's why I'm so interested in taking the dog here.
I got to back up Paddy here if I'm going to take him. In that Soren back fight, that's somebody who had UFC offers but decided to go to Bellator. And you look at him, he's 15-1 now. I mean, that's somebody who is UFC caliber. And then you talk about the Nadny Armani loss, another UFC caliber guy who's like 3-3 in the UFC. And then Paddy does have that win over Julian Erosa. I mean, for what it's worth,
couldn't finish Julian Erosa.
Fair enough. For what it's worth, he's at least made there's a case to be made for every loss that Paddy has on his record.
Yeah, I feel you. This is a fun one, man, and it's probably the most hyped fight, I guess, on the card, and it's in the appropriate spot to open up the main card, and I love when we put the hat on these type of fights. Mm-hmm.
We move on to a matchup in our light heavyweight division where we see Khalil Rountree, who's 8-5, taking on Modestas Bukauskas, who's 11-4. Khalil Rountree, he's training at a Syndicate MMA now. He's on a 2-fight losing streak since that incredible Muay Thai performance against Eric Anders, which I know a lot of people like to put a lot of stock into that fight because rarely do we see dominance like that in the UFC. Khalil Rountree is one of these guys that I like to compare to like Uriah Hall, who doesn't like hurting people, doesn't really believe in himself at sometimes, and can really like get in their heads, and you just don't know which type of fighter is going to show up. That being said, like he has some incredible wins, like his first round knockout of Paul Craig or the Gokhan Saki knockout. And then you go to Bukauskas, and you know he's on an L2 himself. I kind of look at him as discount Alexander Rakic, man. He's got the size, the length, the footwork, but doesn't really have the greatest fight IQ in my opinion. And you kind of look at Bukauskas' career, a lot of his regional wins and losses come in the first round, and he rarely gets outside of it. It was kind of incredible that we saw him go to this decision in that Mikhail Jacek fight. I'm pretty sure the fight doesn't go to decision, was minus 300 or more. Personally, I think that Rountree is only the underdog here because of the Prachniow decision. And I guess I'm going to pick Rountree here.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it one bit. I think it has recency bias written all over it. Rountree, opening book, opened as the favorite, and the public immediately flipped that line. I think this has recency bias written all over it. With Prachniow, the guy he dropped the decision to last time around, was an 0-3 fighter who had been TKO'd in the first round of all three by guys like Mike Rodriguez and Sam Alvey. So myself included, thought Khalil was going to take that one, but myself and you included told people, do not put Khalil Rountree in parlays at all.
No.
We have this little thing that we like to call the quitter box, and it is headlined by Derek Lewis. And I told you guys last week, Kevin Lee was one more from going in there for me. And Khalil, man, he's on the cusp because you don't know which one's going to show up. You talked about him not being real confident in himself. The confidence is easily broken. And I don't necessarily think he enjoys fighting, like you said, But that time spent in Thailand, you can really tell sharpen this guy's, Muay Thai. You see him bouncing with the lead leg, ready to check kicks. He's got really good feints in his left hand down the middle. Is a fucking piston. You've seen him obliterate Gokhan Saki. You mentioned what he did to Eric Anders. It's pillar to post beat down for 15 minutes, drops this guy 4 or 5 times. And Eric Anders is about as durable of a guy as it gets, to be honest with you. And then you really, before the Prachniow fight, you look at who's beaten Khalil Rountree, and it's Andrew Sanchez, it's Ian Kutalabe, Tyson Pedro subbing him, and then, kind of the outlier was the crazy Johnny Walker elbow, but it's guys who kind of get in his face and pressure him with grappling. I don't know how much grappling Bukauskas is going to do here, although it would probably be to his advantage if he did some. You talked about him being like Alexander Rakic. It's not something I've ever made the comparison to, but I absolutely see it in the way that they're built, their length, their frame. You talked about their lateral movement and their speed in general. With him, man, his UFC career has just kind of been all over the place. The first round with Michaelitis, it's close, and it ends with a TKO while you're in commercial because you don't really know what happens. And then the next fight up, it's Jim freaking Crute, man. It's like, Modestas isn't ready for that jumping competition, and he gets obliterated throwing a naked kick. And even Mikhail Zaychek, that's a pretty good, decent level opponent, and he had his moments of success, and he goes to decision. You got to see the cardio and stuff a little bit. I think he has very similar lateral movement to Prachniow, and these guys both spam the right head kick, and that is the best way to keep a southpaw's hand glued to him and not let him throw it, is to throw those right head kicks. But at the same time, Modestas' leg is going to be there to get absolutely chewed up by Khalil Rountree. And you talk about his chin, man. He's been KO'd multiple times. And that is what is keeping me from laying a minus 150 on Bukauskas. Absolutely refuse to. Something's telling me this is going to the scorecards again. And I'm probably going to nibble at the Bukauskas plus 460 by decision. Won't be a big play, but something tells me he squeaks out one here, man.
Yeah, I hope it hits for the sake of the podcast. Our next fight takes place in the welterweight division, where we see David Zawada, who's 17-6, taking on Alex Morono, who's 19-7. David Zawada, he's coming out of American Top Team, and he's had a tough run in the UFC so far. Really tough competition. He has shown that he can find some success. I know In his last fight out, he ended up taking on Ramazan Emeev, who did what Ramazan Emeev does and really slowed the pace down and kind of made it one of those kind of grueling fights. Where you see Alex Morono on the flip side, he's coming out of Gracie Woodlands.
Ricky Tercios.
Yes. And he's kind of taken a step down, in my opinion, from his last fight against Cowboy Cerrone. It seems like this is definitely not a fight that a good manager would take if I was Alex Morono, but it is a fight that has been made. I haven't done my due diligence for this fight. I'm personally going to lead Morono here, and I wouldn't be surprised with a greasy decision.
Yeah, man. So this one it's a hard side for me to pick here too. With David Zawada, he talked about it being an American top team, switched things up a little bit, getting much better looks now than he was over there in Germany. And he's got great size for this division, man. He's got slick timing on his right hand, and he's got a really, really good calf kick that you saw him really get, hammer home in that Emeev fight. Even the fight before Emeev, it's Abubakar Nurmagomedov, and he does win that fight with the submission off his back. Man, that's two dangerous Russians right back to back in a row, and it's going to be hard for David Zawada to really let his hands go when you have the threat of the takedown coming your way there. One thing I don't like really about Zawada is somehow this guy always finds a way to be on his back, whether it's jumping the guillotine, he'll crash in with a lead left hook that's just, Emeev was able to capitalize on it multiple times, get the body lock, drop him right back down, and he's just happy to hunt off his back. And when you submit a Nurmagomedov, it probably instills a confidence in yourself a little bit more. But that being said, he's so active off of his back that he really is a pest to hold down, and that's why you see him with a split decision against Emeev, is because he's so active off his back. With Alex Morono, you talked about him being out of Gracie Woodlands with Ricky Tercios cornering him a lot, but he also trains at Fortis MMA. He was cornering Carlos Diego Ferreira, Jeff Neal when he actually took the fight on short notice against Cowboy. And it's the best win of Alex Morono's career, and I don't want to discredit that from him. But it's probably just a deteriorating Cowboy, if Max Griffin. Maybe right now it's aging well, but you look through the list of who he's beaten, what name stands out to you the most, and it's Cowboy Cerrone. Morono, he is a black belt on the mat. His boxing's pretty decent, but my issue with Morono is his fight IQ, man. He goes in there with Chaos Williams. 27 seconds. He decides to not get any reads and just throw down with Chaos Williams, a newcomer no one knows anything about. Then you look at the Reese McKee fight. That is a guy that I truly think Alex Morono was levels better than, and makes that fight entirely way too close and decides in round 3 he wants to decide to wrestle, where he should have been submitting this guy in round 1, in my opinion, with his black belt. And then go to the Anthony Pettis fight. It's 1-1 going into the 3rd round, and he gets reversed on a sloppy takedown and gets rode out for 4 minutes by an exhausted Anthony Pettis up at welterweight. I don't like this guy's fight IQ, and historically, we've not seen Alex Morono wrestle like we've seen cause David Zawada the trouble. So if it stays on the feet, Zawada might be live to maybe take a decision win here. I do think as it creeps closer, though, Alex Morono might be the more safer play.
Well, yeah, and, maybe if I could have jumped on the opening line on Zawada at plus 165, I might consider it. But as it gets down closer to pick'em odds, I feel much more comfortable taking somebody in Morono who has overcome adversity, shown that he can beat those upper echelon guys. And like I said, I think that we're going to see a decision here, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was a slimy one at that.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you're taking Zawada, you absolutely, like you said, you missed the opportunity to do so. A lot of the value's been lost, and as it gets closer, I think there's potentially more value in Alex Morono here as the better fighter.
We move on to the co-main event where we see Tom Aspinall, who's 10-2, taking on Sergey Spivak, who's 13-2. Tom Aspinall is coming out of Team Cowbon Liverpool, and he's undefeated since entering the UFC with little to no resistance. His second round victory over Andrei Arlovsky was actually the only win that he has in his career that went outside of the first round. Every time that it's gone outside of the first round before that, he's lost. Then you take a look at Sergey Spivak, and even though Sergey Spivak at 26 years old is 2 years younger than Tom Aspinall, he's actually got much more experience than Aspinall, and much more experience at a higher level. I think the biggest thing that I have for this fight is that Sergey Spivak has been battle tested.
Yeah.
You know, whenever he came into the UFC, he fought Walt Harris, and we saw kind of a sluggish Spivak. He came in at like 255 pounds, and then immediately came in against Tai Tuivasa at 235-ish pounds and looked like a completely different fighter. And since then, yes, he's had to fight Marcin Tybura and fell short there, but he has shown major improvement, and right now is on a 3-fight win streak that is much more impressive than Tom Aspinall's. I know that you can look at that Oleinik fight and it kind of give you some concern, but Spivak's fighting somebody in Oleinik who he can't go to the ground with, and that's Spivak's main goal here when he fights. I think this is another time where we need to see Spivak shoot for the takedown and try and test the takedown defense of Aspinall, because we have seen in the past that Aspinall doesn't have the best takedown defense. I know I'm talking about a 23-year-old Aspinall when I talk about the Stewart Austin fight, but he got taken down like 4 times before getting finished by a heel hook, and it worries me for somebody who in Spivak who's now really found his own, and at 26 years old, I got to think that he's only making improvements, and working out there in Russia with Alexander Volkov is only going to help his career. So taking the stab on Spivak, I think that's the move.
I'm on the fence, man, about it. So with Tom, he's getting the fight that he asked for straight off the Contender Series, a fight that was already been scheduled once where we saw Sergey pull out. Tom's camp seems to think that they've got Sergey's number here. With Tom Aspinall, he's kind of, I guess been the number 2, I guess you could say, front runner to the new breed of heavyweights. It was always Cyril Gahn that was kind of leading that way, but a lot of people consider, Tom Aspinall a very close second.
Daukaus number 3,
exactly,
maybe.
You're right. These guys are very light on their feet. They move extremely well for their size, and their boxing is extremely, extremely sharp. Their hands are very fast. They throw in good combinations. What I like best about Aspinall, the calf kicks that he has, the ability to fight backwards and fade away with that left hook. And he's always got that ground game in his back pocket. That double leg that he shot against Andrei Arlovski, I don't know if Curtis Blades can shoot a faster double leg, But you're right, man. It is a pretty easy resume that Tom Aspinall has fought so far. Prior to the UFC and even getting into the UFC, he gets Jake Collier on Jake Collier's fight back, where he shows up from a middleweight to a heavyweight. It's just like Jake Collier looked awful that fight. It's a middleweight with a horrible diet. Mm-hmm. Then what do you know? Sergey pulls out and he gets Alan Bodeau, a light heavyweight with a bad diet. He's not. And then Arlovski, I get it. It's a household name, and he's given people the vet lesson. But you look at the people who have the footwork, the power. Those type of people usually do put Andrei Arlovski away, and are the ones that cause problem for him. His cardio, it's the biggest question for Tom Aspinall. He's fought 0 adversity, and he's not been drawn out in a fight whatsoever. Whereas Sergey Spivak, I've seen this guy go 15 minutes, a couple times now. With him, like you talked about him, he's over in Russia training with Volkov, with Maxim Grishin, and 26 years old. He has not been given the Tom Aspinall treatment whatsoever. You talked about the Walt Harris on short notice, the Tybura, the Tuivasas, and you're right. You do see these constant improvements from him. But when I go back and watch the Oleinik fight, I get it. Oleinik's got the 50-something submissions, but he's a 229-pound heavyweight that Spivak, in my opinion, should have been much stronger than on the mat. In round 1 and round 2 ends with Alexei slicing through to side control and straight into mount. And for a 45-year-old with 1 round of cardio, that kind of worries me. I'm not going to lie. And then now the fact that I really need to kind of bank on Sergey Spivak to use his wrestling, to use his takedowns and kind of drag it out a little bit, and he's kind of supposed to do this on short notice. It does worry me a little bit, but, as breaking it down, I think the strength of schedule and stuff that Sergey Spivak has shown, I don't hate a stab at a plus 210 underdog here that has shown me more than Tom Aspinall has.
I have to go back to, I think that there was a critical point in Spivak's career where he had to make adjustments to stay UFC caliber, and I don't think that Tom Aspinall has faced that type of adversity yet. And, you talked about the Oleinik fight. I got to say, Spivak had 5 minutes of control time in that fight, and the reason why Oleinik wound up on top is because, he's able to sweep him and to create those scrambles where Spivak is winding up in the non-desirable positions.
He's a novice off his back, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think personally that if Aspinall comes out here and knocks Spivak out in the first 30 seconds, that I can still feel
justifiable.
Yeah, still feel good at taking Spivak at 2-1 dog odds here.
I feel you, and the more we talk about it, yeah, man, Tom just hasn't proven it to us yet, and we've been burned thinking there's going to be prospects prove it to us over and over again, and GM3 comes to mind last week, just missing these really wide lines where guys have shown us stuff versus the guys who haven't yet. So I am on Tom's side, but I think there's a lot of value on Spivak and something that'll probably be released for us on the card.
Cool.
Our main event of the evening is in the middleweight division where we see Derek Brunson, who's 22-7, taking on Darren Till, who's 18-3-1. In his last 2 fights, Derek Brunson has made you and I a little bit of money. I know you were huge on him as the plus 300 dog to Edmund Shabazian, and something that I regret to this day not seeing, because I was all over him against Kevin Holland. You know, that was really the first glimpse of Kevin Holland's takedown defense issues that we've seen here recently from him, and I just knew Derek Brunson was going to be able to capitalize on that, and here he is yet again, man, as another betting underdog. He's made the move to Sanford MMA. It's been a late move in his career, but it has really, really paid off for him. You know, after he was hitting that streak of fighting and losing to the top-level guys, regardless of it being a little bit of a step down, he's looked phenomenal in his last 4. The move to Sanford, you know, he's got Henry Hoof there. You would think, Derek Brunson's making leaps and bounds in the striking. Not so much, man. I think he's just matured. I think that Jim and that coach has done just wonders for this guy's maturity. When you look at his previous 10 fights before going to Sanford, 2 takedowns, 10 fights, 2 of them. Look at his last 4 fights, 16 takedowns that he's landed. I think it just took a good gym, a good coach to show Derek what he's good at, you know? And then you look at Till, he's not fought a good wrestler the way Derek Brunson is, you know? With Till, yeah, he's still 28, he's very young, he's been on the top of 2 divisions now, super close to a title shot, got the one at welterweight. But man, you beat a lightweight in Cowboy that you're 30 pounds heavier than on fight night, and you get gifted a decision in London or in Liverpool, wherever, against Stephen Wonderboy. He's a favorite against Tyron Woodley. He's kind of a hype job, you know? For me, Darren Till is kind of his worst enemy, you know? I just looking through the fights, you know, there's a 5-rounder with Whitaker. The guy throws 41 strikes, or lands 41 strikes. 3-rounder with Gaston, 36 strikes. In his fight with Woodley, he didn't even throw a strike. He didn't land one. And then you look at the 5-rounder with Wonderboy again, another 25-minute fight, and this guy lands 38 strikes. Till is not winning a decision here whatsoever. I think Brunson is twice as equipped to win a decision here. Don't get me wrong, Till's TKO was wide open to happen. The durability's been an issue. But Till, man, been a letdown for me, and I think there's a lot of value on Brunson to take this one as a dog, and I think we got a spot that we really like here, man.
Yeah, I come in screaming about this Brunson by decision at plus 500, man. That is ridiculous. It's only offered at FanDuel right now, but that line is so broken, I can't even explain it. You know, you talk about Derek Brunson and his big-time career resurgence since losing to Izzy. You know, you talk about his losses that he's suffered. Yoel, Whitaker, Silva, Souza,
He
Izzy.
didn't lose to Silva.
Yeah, right, correct.
Don't even count that one.
So, I mean, we're only talking about the best of the best at 185. And like you said, maturity was a great way to put it. I put it was a point in his career where he completely swallowed his pride and didn't care about making a fight interesting. He'll win by any means necessary, and if that means wrestle fucking you to a decision, he's more than happy to do that. I've been a Derek Brunson hater for as long as I can remember, but he has some clear advantages here. With Darren Till, you know, he's one of those guys similar. You just got to bring up Connor. You know, it's just he's just got that cult following. He comes from Europe. It just there's some comparisons to be made, and the energy that he brings into the octagon is an X factor. Yes. That being said, we're in Vegas. You know, I don't think it's something that Derek Brunson is gonna.
Yeah, we're not in England like it was supposed to be.
Right. So this one, it's not gonna have the same. Personally, I would have put a lot more stock into Darren Till and being that all the hype and having that environment. I would have put more stock into that, and would have made Darren Till a little bit more of a favorite in my opinion. I think he can feed off that energy like we see a lot of those type of fighters do. And like you said, you know, you look at Darren Till's last 6, he should be 0-6 in his last fights. Or okay, maybe I take that back. He should be 1-5 in his last 6.
Mm-hmm.
That, like you said, the Wonder Boy Thompson one lost. Who gets submitted by Tyron Woodley? You know, Jorge Masvidal, biggest, most overrated fighter at 170, and he gets knocked out, man. Now, you know, he's up at fights Kelvin Gastelum, wins a split decision. Kelvin Gastelum, right, and he's 1-5 in his last 6.
Whitaker's an ex-welterweight.
Right, there you go. And then Whitaker, one of the biggest things that Darren Till lost when he moved from 170 to 185 is his size, and that was really one of the biggest components of his game. You talk about
first real middleweight in front of him too now.
Right. You talk about Darren Till being kind of one-dimensional. Yeah, man, he has a laser sharp left hand, which you cannot discredit. It is legit, and a very powerful kick.
Right.
That being said, if you can figure that out, you've got Darren Till figured out. And he truly hasn't proven anything to me to be one, as popular as he is, and two, deserving of being a favorite. Yeah. I think that, you know, everything screams that we should bet Brunson here. And then you throw on top of it, Till's been out of the octagon for over a year now. Now, like you said, he's got to fight his first true 185er that's more than capable of holding him down. If Brunson can take down Yoel, he can take down Till. And Till's not as big as we like to think he is at 185 now.
I'm with you, man. The one knock you kind of have to bring up on Derek Brunson is you look at who he's foughten. Yes, it's good guys, but Souza's finishing this guy twice, by TKO. Yoel comes back and gets the TKO, and Izzy and Whitaker, again, TKO him. So the durability, it is a question. We just haven't really got to see it lately. But even in round 2, versus Holland, got sketchy for a moment, I do think if Till is able to land that shot, I think he's got the power to put Brunson away. But that TKO prop, man, opened at plus 340. There's a ton of value there. It's a plus 145 now. 200 points. You've easily missed the window to bet Darren Till, in my opinion.
Even money on DraftKings right now for a Darren Till
right.
TKO.
He's not equipped to win a decision, so you've lost, 250 points, 270 points there. And even his money line opening at a minus 138, there's 50 points you've lost on that. The time to bet Darren Till is long gone, in my opinion. The value is most definitely starting to be on Brunson. I know we're going to take a stab on that decision, but man, as we break it down even more, I'm almost wanting to bet the money line.
Here's something I got to point out, man. If Woodley's able to submit Till, and we think Brunson's going to get as much top control time as he is going to get, Brunson by submission is plus 2,900. We've got 5 rounds for him to figure out some way to get it done. And if he's going to spend that much time on top, plus 2,900 seems a little crazy to be out there.
I feel you. I understand. Yeah, I like that decision a little bit more. Till's a big dude, and he might actually defend some of these takedowns a little bit easier than Kevin Holland and Edmund Shabazian. But I do think that Darren Brunson's wrestling will be the X factor here.
And, Brunson has an inch of height and 2 inches of reach. He's actually the bigger guy. Like I said, I think Darren Till's going to come in here and not be as, the gorilla as he usually is.
I'm with you, man. I think we might be taking Derek Brunson as a dog on Saturday. That wraps up only 10 fights we got on the fight. And remember, on Saturday, I think they started like noon or 11, something like that. If you're around here on our time, can get down with that, like I said. Just to do a quick little recap, man, I'll go ahead and tell you my fight of the night. It's going to be the one that's going to kick off the card there. I think Marcelo Rojo and Jonathan Martinez are going to come to bang. Rojo's style, it's one of those guys kind of like Vicente Luque. He just comes at you and he forces you to brawl. There's just no way about it. I think there's if it does hit the judges' scorecard, I think both those guys take quite a bit of damage in that fight.
100%. I'm gonna have my fight of the night. It has to be Luigi and Paddy, man. I mean, I think that's probably the second most hype card, or hype fight on the card, other than the main event.
For sure.
And it honestly might give the main event a run for its money as far as hype on the internet. And then I guess to move on to my fighter of the night, it's gonna have to be Paddy Pimblett, man. He is the show here, man. I honestly think that he's going to bring a lot of new casual fans to the sport, and just like Conor McGregor did, I like him for that.
I gotcha. So for me, I'm going to take a little nibble of the Modestas decision and go against him, but my fighter to watch is going to be Khalil Rountree. He opened as the favorite, and the public steamed him after one bad showing of him, in the past, historically. It's been pretty good level competition that causes this guy issues, and he's there to have a bounce-back fight on Saturday, and I wouldn't hate it if he got one of his patented KOs. Mm-hmm. For me, underdog, I'm going to go right back to that Luigi and Paddy fight. So for me, I'm going to go Luigi. Vendramini is my underdog. Been a guy you and I love to make money on in cash. And with Paddy being that grappling heavy style, I think he's got a really tough guy ahead of him that could negate some of that.
Mm-hmm. It sucks because I'd like to be on it so that the podcast can take him, but maybe there is a prop spot in that fight that we can exploit. I think that my underdog's going to have to be Sergey Spivak. Man, just talking about that fight got me a little pumped up. I think that Spivak has all the tools in the world to kind of end the hype train of Tom Aspinall.
What about your best bet?
My best bet of the night, it's going to have to be that Brunson by decision line. Sitting at plus 500, where that's the most likely way that Brunson wins. I think that there's a lot of value there. And I know that 5 rounds is really tough to get through, but Brunson's done it in a couple of his last fights.
And I'm with you. Darren Till's proven to be one tough SOB. You see him submitted and dropped by Tyron Woodley, Jorge Masvidal, but you're talking about a massive weight cut down to 170 that he's having to take. At 185, I do expect him to eat some of these shots, and Derek Brunson really doesn't even prove to be much of a striker. I expect a whole lot of riding time and that decision prop to hit for us. You do not like this. My safest bet is going to be any way you want to put Jack Shore in there on Saturday.
No.
I know he is, he has not yet, I guess, proven himself, but he's not taken on somebody like GM3 and stuff who has proven themselves before. He's taken on Liudvik, who's also kind of in the same boat, and who's lost to worser competition than Jack Shore. I expect him to be far stronger in a lot of those clinch and grappling switch situations, which is where I see this fight probably taking place a lot. I'm going to go Jack Shore as my safest bet, but man, I understand the odds are getting almost unplayable.
100%.
That concludes all of it, man. I appreciate you guys tuning with us. Hop in those comments. Let us know who you guys have in the main event, if you're with us or against us. Appreciate you tuning in.
Peace.